Don't look now, but it's a whole new world of weed out there. Pot is flower, it's Bruce Banner and Blue Dream. You've got bongs and dabs, resin and shatter, vaping and edibles, new terms, new strains, and new ways to use cannabis sativa, the plant. Some just made with CBD, and hemp has minimal THC. There's sativa and indica strains, and 100 chemicals, all legal in 10 states for adult use. There's a lot to get to know. Get used to it, folks, because it's legal in the Bay State and it's not going away. Neither is In the Weeds with Jimmy Young next. Revolutionary Clinics is just one of 49 medical cannabis dispensaries in Massachusetts, but there's a reason why it's one of the most popular. It's their patient-first philosophy. All day long, they teach, they educate, they communicate about this complicated plant called cannabis sativa. That's true whether you visit their Cambridge location in Fresh Pond at 110 Fawcett Street or at 67 Broadway in Somerville. Revolutionary Clinics, where the patient comes first. Hi, everybody. Welcome to a special edition of In the Weeds with Jimmy Young. We are in our studio in Wellesley, Massachusetts. We've been on the road for many, many months now. Happy to be back in the studios here. And I'm joined by Scott Bettano from the Boston Cannabis Week. Did I pronounce your name right, Bettano?
Yes, you did, Jim.
I wanted to make sure I did that, okay? And I understand also you have a co-founder in Lisa Finelli. I want to make sure she gets equal time because, as you know, in the Me Too era, they deserve equal time.
Lisa is fantastic. This wouldn't be possible without her.
Yep. And so before we get going into the Boston Cannabis Week and how successful it was, I want to find out a little bit about your own background. We ask a lot of people that come in, what is your cannabis story? What is your cannabis story?
Well, my cannabis story is I found out at a very young age when I was about 15 years old that it wasn't as bad as people were telling me. I had an uncle I was very close to who confided in me at a young age that he was using cannabis to treat his cancer. And he battled lymphoma for 15 years, and he attributed the reason he was able to last so long was because of the legal cannabis oils he was getting at the time. So at a young age, I became an advocate for it. I recognized the health benefits. And I was always involved a little bit here and there. And in 2012, I got raided by the DEA. I had a cross-country shipping operation that was going on for a little bit.
Okay. Knock, knock, knock. Who's at the door?
Yeah. Something like that.
Okay.
But instead of, I was on the front page of the papers and stuff like that for the arrest. And instead of hiding from it, I embraced it. It was soon after in 2013 that medical became legal in Massachusetts. And I decided right then and there, I says, I've been in this industry for a very long time. Now that it's legal, this is the direction I'm going. It's something I'm passionate about. And what better to do for your job than something you're passionate about?
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I've talked to people in the cannabis space that have that passion, and it is remarkable because of the consistency of it. People, and by the way, did you ever think that you would see 13 championships in our native state of Massachusetts in sports and weed being legal for adult use? I pinch myself.
Yeah, it's like we're living in a dream. We really are.
The golden age of sports and the golden age of weed.
Yeah, it's kind of it's like Prohibition all over again, except without the Tommy guns.
Right, end of Prohibition, but for sure. Terrific. Let's talk a little bit about, you said the Boston Hemp Company is a CBD company that you're involved with?
Yes, so I'm one of the owners of Boston Hemp Company. It's a CBD company that we deal directly with the hemp farmers in Maine. Yep. Everything is processed right in Maine. We make tinctures and topicals. It was important for us to put out a quality product for the local market. Everything is third-party tested through MCR Labs. And we started in January, and it's been a nice little venture. And we've been able to help a lot of people, which is nice.
And, of course, we've talked about this ad nauseum on this show, that hemp is the cannabis sativa plant that has under 0.3% THC, the intoxicating chemical in the cannabis plant. I'm becoming rote about this whole thing, right? Right? And then, of course, now we have to use the M word, which I don't like to use, but we use the marijuana word to explain the differences between the two plants because they look very similar.
Not just similar, they're identical. If you've ever been in a hemp field, you wouldn't know the difference.
Right.
I mean, my first time in a hemp field, I couldn't believe it. Looks, smells exactly the same. You wouldn't know it until you test it.
You know, one of the things I've learned, I'm going to throw this out at you, blind question, about the leaves of the cannabis plant. Some people take those leaves and turn them into juice, and
Yes.
they have found it to be very therapeutic.
Yeah. One of my good friends, he juices the leaves for his mother who has MS, and she's using RSO and stuff like that as well. But she's finding that, juicing the leaves and stuff like that is helping with energy and stuff along those lines.
It's an amazing plant, isn't it?
It's absolutely incredible.
And it's again, I've learned about chemistry, I've learned about botany, I've learned about business. It touches so many aspects of industry besides those who just partake. It's become it's going to be a bigger business, and it's been extremely slow on the rollout. Any frustrations about how slowly our friends at the Cannabis Control Commission have rolled this thing out into our Bay State?
Well, super frustrated with the way things have rolled out in the state, but unlike a lot of people, I don't put that on the Cannabis Control Commission because I think their hands are tied by the politicians in the state. I know a lot of them personally very passionate about getting this thing rolled out, and they want to do it in the right way. But, they're dealing with obstacles just like anyone else. But I do tell people when they get frustrated, look to the north at our neighbors in Maine who legalized on the same way we do, and they still don't have a recreational program.
Right.
So,
and by the way, Maine and Massachusetts were one once back in the day before the country actually was around. We were that first colony. Anyway, we talked about the Cannabis Commission. It's a tough job that they have. I agree. I've talked to a lot of these commissioners. Their hands are tied because of the verbiage in the law, and they feel that, they point the finger at the host security agreements and the towns. It's really funny, by the way. The federal government points the finger at the states, and the states points the finger at the host cities and towns, right? Isn't it interesting? Finger pointing doesn't work, people, okay? It's called communication and education. This is what is necessary at our elected officials level, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it starts at the top. But the problem is
there's a lot of problems.
There's a lot of problems, but the biggest problem is elected officials all have their own agenda.
Right.
Right. So until they can figure out how they're going to profit from it and how it's going to set them up, we're going to be at an impasse.
Yeah, and we're not. I don't know if we're impassing, but we're certainly slowly rolling. How's that?
We are. I mean, there's as slow as it's been. If you take a look back, we've come a long way. But there is a long, long road ahead of us. The fight isn't over. There is a lot more that needs to be done, and to make this not just a successful market, but an equitable market, and make it inclusive, especially the people who have been involved in this for a very long time, have been adversely affected by the drug war.
Like yourself.
Like myself.
Yep.
I've been very fortunate to be able to do what I do, but there are greater barriers of entry out there to others, and that's why it's important to us to try to put together some educational type events that are free to the public and be able to learn about this and work together and keep strong.
It's about education, isn't it? Because the more you
Everything is
know,
about
I hate to
education.
use that, but it's always about education. And, it's a fascinating thing. I was reading Sports Illustrated this morning about the decline of football amongst states in our union, and it reflects our political divide, the red states and the blue states, which was fascinating to me in many ways. We're not going to go off on a tangent, but I thought I would share that because I recommend that article.
I actually had heard something about that on sports radio a couple weeks back, and very similar to what you're talking about.
Yeah. And what did they say on sports radio? Because as you know, there was a time in my life when that was part of my world, And by the way, it's still part of my world. I love sports. Let's not get into that, all right?
Sure.
I know that you do like sports. And by the way, how great is it that the Patriots look as good as they look already? Because I know we know that this is dating it. I know I'm dating it, okay? But we got one game under our belts, all right? Now I'm really dating it. I was so impressed with their performance last night.
I was really impressed, especially, I mean, Tom Brady just amazes me. I mean, just when you think, is this going to be the year where he starts to decline? And again, we're one game into it. It's a long season, and knock on wood, he can stay healthy, but he looked incredible last night.
Yeah. As you get older, your definitions of success change. Yes, you're a competitor, and he's a fierce competitor. He always wants to win the game that's on the schedule, the next game, right? Yeah. Whatever it is. But as you get older, the success of not getting hurt after you exercise, play a game, becomes a factor.
Absolutely.
And trust me, I know this. And then, sure enough, we hope to keep him upright through the entire season, which is always the goal with this, because football is very quarterback-centric as far as the sport goes. Do you think the athletes should be using CBD? Obviously, I'm guessing you do, since you have a company.
I think they should be using CBD, and they should be using cannabis.
Yeah. By the way, they are.
They are.
They're just not getting caught as regularly as they could have been.
Correct. But they shouldn't have to hide it.
Correct.
At the end of the day, if somebody wants to use that to ease their pain rather than pills and have pain pills shoved down their throat, I mean, we've seen many star athletes. Brett Favre was very open about, his addiction to painkillers and stuff like that. There's research coming out now that it can help with concussion treatment and everything else. And I think sports really need to step up and take a hard look at it. I've heard through the grapevine that the NFL is starting to move in that direction.
Yeah.
I think you're going to see it as a big part of the negotiation coming up with the players in the coming season.
Yeah.
Once the CBA expires.
2020.
Exactly.
And let me ask you a question. If you were in that locker room, would you strike to guarantee your contract and guarantee lifetime health benefits?
Yeah, why wouldn't I?
Thank you very much. And by the way, if the players decide to hold out and do that, they will have 100% of the public behind them.
Yes, they will. But I don't think it'll go that far. I don't think the owners will risk a lockout.
Well, the owners control the lockout. The players would control a strike. There is a difference there.
Well,
and what happened the last time that the owners tried to lock out and hire the non-union
the replacement players?
Yeah, that's what they were called. I know I hate saying them, but there also is another word for them with a four-letter word,
Yeah.
That being said, Flutie was one of them, too. Sorry, Doug, I had to say it. I do enjoy your entertainment. I did enjoy you on the field, whether you worked for the Patriots officially or not, or the let's just say.
I had the pleasure of meeting Doug Flutie when I was younger, and what a gentleman.
He is a great legend of sport in this community. Yeah. Unlike a lot, because he's hometown grown, and certainly put Boston College into a completely different element as far as their athletics goes.
Oh, absolutely.
And their admissions, and probably their endowment, and everything else, right? I don't you think he gets anything from that? No, I don't care.
He got all the fame, but do you remember the guy who caught the ball?
Of course, I played golf with Gerard. Gerard Phelan.
I got to meet Gerard as well. He's another great guy.
But you know what's the funny? If you ever see that, look on the sideline do you see Bob Newmeyer jumping up and down, yes. Really excited? That's the funniest part of the clip, right? Anyway, all right, we're talking with Scott Bettano from the Boston Cannabis Week, and I do want to go back to the Farm Bill for a second here, because the thing about our government is sometimes they act before they really know, and I think if they had to do it again, perhaps some more education about CBD needed to be shared, because they opened up, I don't want to say a can of worms, but they started something that they now can't even get a grasp on. And I'm talking about the FDA and the DEA and all this. So, but it was a significant point in our history that became a legal product to grow in the United States.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you have so many farmers now that are converting their land over to hemp fields, and it's amazing to see. I mean, we're talking about a product that was a big part of history. We're talking about a sustainable product that can help with a lot of issues in the world as far as eliminating plastics, another source of fuel, cleansing the soil. Just look at saving trees alone. I mean, it's like an acre of hemp produces the same amount of paper as 3 acres of trees or 4 acres of trees. and the stuff is just amazing. So it's historic and unbelievable to see, but they didn't put a lot of thought into it because all those things I named that hemp is great for, CBD is kind of the golden nugget of the hemp industry right now, and they had to know that that's where everybody was going to go with it. And here we are, and you go state to state, and there's still uncertainty. Even though the Farm Bill passed, it's federally legal, I can't sponsor an ad on Facebook from my hemp company.
Right. But you can on Pro Cannabis Media. I just want to point that out to you, Scott.
And we appreciate
All
that.
Right. You're right. And it's frustrating, and yet it was cause for celebration for those who were advocates for cannabis for so long, because I believe it was the first step. As we look back on this in a few more years, when eventually we will see federal either decriminalization or true legalization, or they'll just leave it up to the states to make their own laws. I really do believe that the new normal is out there. I don't know if I'll live to see that day, but I do think that we are moving in that direction, albeit slowly.
Yes, very slowly. But, Rome wasn't built in a day.
Exactly.
Progress is still progress, and as frustrating as it is, it makes it more frustrating in this country to look to our neighbors in the north and Canada and see how everything is federally legal now, and that market is flourishing. And now you have a host of Canadian companies coming down here and buying up the U.S. companies. And you want to make America great again, let's start with the cannabis industry.
Well, I can start with something else, but you didn't want to talk about politics, all right? That being said, all right? No, I agree. Follow the almighty dollar. Right?
Yeah.
The almighty dollar drove healthcare costs ridiculously, and all those drugs that you see advertised on television, still one of the largest categories in advertising is big pharma.
Yep.
We see that. Are you fearful about what big pharma's role may play in the cannabis /hemp /CBD world?
I'm extremely fearful, but that's one of the amazing things through the education of this industry, and now people getting educated right now, is they're learning that they're turning to this because it's natural and it's a plant and it comes from nature. So I think you're going to find a lot of distrust in those pharmaceutical companies as they move to make different drugs out of this. So hopefully, because of the organic growth of it now, people will still look to their local growers and their farmers, for their products.
Are you surprised that the illegal market has flourished as much as it has?
Not at all. Not at all. You look at the taxes and everything. Last I checked, you go into a recreational store in Mass and it's $420 for an ounce. And what that's actually done, not only had the black market flourish, prices have gone up in the black market because now people on the street are like, you were paying $175 for an ounce, now it's $250, and they say go pay $420 if you don't like it.
Right.
So it's kind of funny. I saw a statistic the other day with California. I read an article where the legal market in California did $3 billion in the last calendar year. Right. They estimate the illegal market did $8.3 billion.
Right.
So,
and Humboldt County being like the biggest provider of illegal cannabis to the country, and whatever. We can get into that another day too. They have that story alone about that. Now that I learned about that, I'm fascinated with what goes on up there. So, and California, just so you know, they're a member of the United States, but they're a completely different planet. Every time I go there, the people are just different.
I love California. I've spent a lot of time in Southern California.
I'm not saying I don't love it, okay?
Love it.
It gets harder and harder to get back on a plane, especially if you go in the winter. But still,
absolutely.
Right? But still, it's like it's just different there.
It is a different universe. The people are so laid back. And I think you find in my travels throughout the country, I think you find that a lot when you get away from New England, we are definitely the East Coast. We are definitely the biggest busybodies I've ever been around. In
Cynics.
Yes, and everything around here is go, 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 and there's not a lot of the stopping to smell the roses, if you will.
Chill. We need more. We need chill pills.
Yeah.
That's what we need. We need chill pills in the Northeast. Actually, I think
we just need more dispensaries.
I was going to, that when you get right down to it, you're 100% right. Scott Bettano, I think I could talk with you forever about sports and cannabis, but I think this has been great to get to know you. I wish you the best of luck in the future with the Boston Hemp CBD Company. Where can people find out about that?
So Boston Hemp Company, we have a website. It's hempcoboston.com, and we are Boston Hemp Company on all social media channels. And hopefully people listening will come out and check out Boston Cannabis Week. We start on September 16th with a night of education at District Hall, and we have free educational networking events going on throughout the week. We have a great golf tournament on September 19th, and we have ending with Experience Boston, which is a live music and arts festival. So, and can check all that out at bostoncannabisweek.com and Boston Cannabis Week on all our social media channels.
All right. Thank you so much, Scott Bettano, for coming in today. And best to Lisa Finelli. You guys did a great job on Boston Cannabis Week. It was a huge success, and I was happy to be a little bit part of it. So for Scott Bettano, our director, Steve Helmuth, and everybody here at Pro Cannabis Media, I'm Jimmy Young. Thanks for listening to In the Weeds. And remember, it's a whole new world of weed out there. Use it responsibly. Revolutionary Clinics is just one of 49 medical cannabis dispensaries in Massachusetts, but there's a reason why it's one of the most popular. It's their patient-first philosophy. All day long, they teach, they educate, they communicate about this complicated plant called cannabis sativa. That's true whether you visit their Cambridge location in Fresh Pond at 110 Fawcett Street or at 67 Broadway in Somerville. Revolutionary Clinics, where the patient comes first. In the Weeds with Jimmy Young is a production of the Pro Cannabis Media Group for the education and information of our listening audience. The opinions on this podcast are strictly those of the hosts of the program and do not represent Pro Cannabis Media or any of its affiliates. No medical advice is given, and any use of cannabis should be by adults over the age of 21 and used responsibly.